Have you ever wondered if a close friend could become a betrayer? When the truth is revealed, can love and trust survive the test? The story of James, Diep, and Tung will make you reflect on forgiveness and justice like never before. In this dramatic story, you will witness the heartbreaking betrayal by Tung, a trusted friend who secretly worked for their enemy, John. How do James and Diep face the harsh truth when the person they trusted puts them both in danger? Can they forgive Tung, who once stood by their side through countless storms? After John's arrest, does the love between James and Diep grow stronger through the trials? What will help them overcome the pain of betrayal, rebuild trust, and find happiness again? Do you believe justice always wins? Or is forgiveness the true power? Their story is not just a lesson about betrayal but also a testament to compassion and resilience. If you want to explore this emotional journey and understand more about the power of love, justice, and forgiveness, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next gripping stories. Join us and share your thoughts. That night, the rain poured down heavily, each drop falling as if bearing the weight of the heavy burdens on the souls of those standing before a devastating truth. The rain didn't just soak the road leading to the police station, it seemed to mirror the deep pain within the hearts of James and Diep. They stood silently by the cold, unyielding walls of betrayal, eyes brimming with tears and hearts overwhelmed with confusion. The person they once called a friend, who had fought alongside them through countless challenges and hardships, was revealed to be a merciless betrayer. Tung, the friend James once considered a brother, and the one Diep had trusted completely, had turned against them in the most painful way possible. The truth about Tung was not just a shock, it was a violent storm that swept away all trust and hope. No one could have imagined that the one who had stood by their side during difficult times would secretly become a pawn for John, their most dangerous enemy. Tung's betrayal was not merely emotional, he was a saboteur from within, handing over James's secrets and plans to John, shattering every effort James made. Every time James thought he was close to success, Tung stabbed him in the back, causing everything to collapse. This betrayal was like a deep wound, bleeding and aching every moment. Being deceived felt far worse than physical pain. James wrapped his arms tightly around himself, as if trying to hold on to the beautiful memories of the friendship they once had, but now those memories were shattered beyond repair. Every memory of battles fought together, shared confessions, and moments of mutual protection was now stained with lies. James could hardly believe that someone he once called brother could betray them so ruthlessly. Diep, standing beside James, felt just as deeply wounded. She had tended to Tung's injuries, believed he was her protector, someone who would always put her first. But now she realized it was all a facade, a mask hiding his true nature. She lost not only her sense of safety but also her absolute trust in someone she had believed in without question. Her tears fell not only from fear of the sinister plots against her but also from the deep sorrow of being deceived. This pain was not hers alone, nor James's, it was the pain of anyone who had trusted and loved Tung. The betrayal was even more cruel when they realized Tung hadn't merely worked for John from the shadows, he had actively participated in the kidnapping plan against Diep, the person they both cherished most. They had fought to protect her, sacrificed to keep her safe, yet the one they trusted most sided with the enemy, putting her life in grave danger. The thought tightened James's chest. He struggled to breathe, suffocated by the weight of such treachery. The rain outside seemed to join his torment, growing heavier, as if trying to wash away everything. James and Diep stood motionless in the rain, too overwhelmed for words. They lost faith in their friend, in honesty, and even in the beautiful memories they once shared. The pain was no longer just about work or interests, it was the shattering of a bond built through blood and tears. Being betrayed by someone so close was a wound that would never fully heal. It hurt not just the soul but threatened to destroy the person themselves. In the darkness of that rainy night, James and Diep lost more than a friend, they lost a part of their faith in life itself. They wondered if trust could ever be rebuilt. Would these wounds ever heal, or would they remain scars forever? These questions had no easy answers, and perhaps they were not ready to face them yet. At that moment, the only certainty was that they still had each other, together. They would try to overcome this cruel betrayal and the overwhelming pain. Tung's betrayal was not just a wrong action, it was the collapse of a sacred trust in friendship, loyalty, and sincerity. James and Diep stood like two figures caught in a storm, their hearts battered but still holding on to hope for the future, for themselves, and for each other. They understood that no matter how deep the wounds, no matter how fierce the trials, love and resilience were the bridges that would carry them through the darkness. As the rain finally began to ease that night, James and Diep stepped out of the police station weighed down by sorrow. They knew a new chapter of their lives was beginning, a chapter of hard-to-heal wounds, unanswered questions, and a journey to find peace amid life's storms. But above all, they knew they had each other, and that was the strength they needed to keep moving forward. When Tung was finally arrested and sat under the cold interrogation lights, the tears he shed were not only the pain of a criminal exposed but also the desperate plea of a soul seeking redemption. Tung knew that no explanation or excuse could erase the wounds he had inflicted on James and Diep. Yet, in those vulnerable moments, he chose to tell the truth, accepting the consequences of his wrong decisions. Tung confessed that he had been threatened and blackmailed by John, that weakness and the lure of power led him down the path of crime. He had once been a friend, a teammate who stood by James and Diep through countless storms. But negative emotions like jealousy, anger, and resentment clouded his judgment. When John offered promises of power and benefits, Tung allowed himself to be tempted, losing himself and betraying the values he once believed in. However, deep in his heart, he still cared for James and Diep, a feeling that prevented him from watching them suffer without remorse. Tung's regret forced James and Diep to face a much greater challenge than merely exposing a traitor: the choice between strict justice and compassionate forgiveness. James, who had always stood firmly for justice, suddenly found himself grappling with a more difficult question: does justice mean mercy and forgiveness? Could he open his heart to forgive someone who had put the life of the person they both loved most in grave danger? The question had no immediate answer, and the silence between James and Diep showed that forgiveness would not come easily. Diep, with red-rimmed eyes but a gentle and steady voice, offered a compassionate perspective. He did wrong, but he's not entirely evil. He was scared, weak, and maybe not completely lost. Her words were like a soft breeze soothing James's heart, which was caught in a storm of anger and pain. Perhaps forgiveness isn't about forgetting everything, but understanding human nature with all its flaws and finding a way not to be consumed by those wounds forever. Tung's regret was not just cold words in the interrogation room or empty confessions on paper. It was the awakening of a lost man, an inner battle between guilt and the desire to make amends. He did not hide the pain he saw in James's disappointed and wounded eyes, and he knew that no matter how many apologies he made, the damage would not vanish overnight. But what he longed for most was a chance to start over, to at least partially redeem the mistakes he had made. James looked at Tung with a complicated mix of emotions. A part of him wanted to hold on to the old friend who had stood by him through so much. But the other part was pushed to the edge by betrayal and heartbreak. "I don't know if I can forgive you," James said, his voice tired and bitter, "but I hope one day you can forgive yourself." His words were not only a refusal but also a profound message about self-forgiveness, the essential step for anyone to live and move forward. Diep glanced back at Tung once more, her eyes soft but sincere. "Sometimes, the only way to make things right is to face fully the pain you caused." Those words kindled a small flame in Tung's soul, a faint hope for change and redemption. Forgiveness is not about ignoring mistakes but a long and difficult journey requiring courage and patience from everyone involved. Though their hearts were still torn, James and Diep realized they couldn't let hatred control their lives. They needed to rise from the ashes of betrayal, choose peace over revenge, and learn to let go in order to heal their hearts. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily or quickly, but it was the strength they needed to keep moving forward, so that their relationship wouldn't be completely shattered by the deep wounds. The story of James, Diep, and Tung is not just a lesson about betrayal and regret but a testament to the power of compassion, tolerance, and human resilience. In life, no one is perfect, and everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether, after those mistakes, we have the courage to admit them, face the consequences, and whether those around us can open their hearts to offer second chances. The journey of forgiveness for James and Diep was still long ahead, but as long as they had each other, and held on to sincerity and trust, no matter how hard it was, they could overcome. The story does not end with betrayal but marks the beginning of a new journey, a journey of healing, loving anew, and building a stronger future. After many tense and trying days filled with danger and uncovered secrets, justice was finally served. John, the mastermind behind so much pain and threat to James and Diep, was arrested and brought to justice. When this news reached them, a deep sense of relief flooded their hearts. For the first time in a long while, they could truly breathe easy and feel genuine peace beside each other. No longer living in fear or under the shadow of dark conspiracies, they could finally look forward to the future with stronger faith than ever before. James looked at Diep with eyes full of warmth and love, deeper than before. The trials they had endured together, facing danger and betrayal, had transformed their love from something innocent and naive into a bond forged through fire, deep, steadfast, and unbreakable. Every hardship they overcame side by side, every moment spent together in darkness, strengthened the connection between them. James realized that Diep was not just the woman he loved, but his most steadfast companion, someone who had stood firmly with him through the toughest moments of his life. With John's threat removed, James devoted more time and care to Diep. His attention and love deepened profoundly. He was no longer the man consumed by work and business schemes, but a man who listened, shared, and protected the woman he loved with all his heart. Diep felt this change clearly, like a fresh stream of cool water flowing into her soul, washing away the scars left by fear and uncertainty that had once made her timid and anxious. They often sat together on the porch, gazing at the clear blue sky and breathing in the fresh morning air. Diep leaned into James's shoulder, feeling the warmth radiating from him, and in that moment, she knew nothing could shake their love anymore. All the pain, all the betrayals were now just memories. What mattered most was the present, genuine love and absolute trust they shared. James often gently recalled those difficult days, as a way to honor the journey they had taken together. He understood that it was precisely these trials, those seemingly insurmountable moments, that made their love extraordinary, not just simple affection, but a profound bond born of empathy and understanding. Each time he looked into Diep's eyes, James saw the power of love, the power that kept them standing strong amidst all upheavals, never letting go of each other's hands. Diep, in turn, found peace in James, the man she trusted and leaned on. She knew he had endured many pressures and hardships, but never once showed weakness or complaint to her. Their love was the perfect balance between strength and gentleness, protection and trust. Each day together was a step toward strengthening the solid foundation of their future, ensuring that nothing could come between their harmony. Their peace was not only about the present but also a promise for the future. James and Diep understood that life would still bring challenges, but with their love and companionship, they could face anything together. They no longer feared or doubted, because having survived the darkest days, any hardship ahead was just part of their long journey hand in hand, hearts beating as one. With safety assured and love rekindled, James and Diep rediscovered themselves, more mature, stronger, and loving more deeply than before. Their lives were no longer a series of precarious days but a hopeful, passionate journey. From the hardships and events that could have destroyed them, they emerged as true victors, not because they never fell, but because they knew how to rise and keep walking forward, hand in hand, hearts united in rhythm. The story of James, Diep, and Tung is a powerful exploration of trust, betrayal, and the complex journey toward forgiveness. What struck me most is how the narrative shows that betrayal often comes from those closest to us, making the wounds even deeper. Tung's actions were devastating, not only because he endangered James and Diep, but because he shattered their faith in someone they once loved and trusted. However, the story doesn't stop at betrayal. It courageously delves into themes of remorse, accountability, and the difficult choice between seeking justice and offering forgiveness. Tung's genuine regret and willingness to face consequences show that even those who falter can find a path to redemption. Meanwhile, James and Diep's struggle to forgive highlights how forgiveness is not an instant act but a process requiring courage and understanding. I also admire how the story portrays love as something tested and strengthened through adversity, not just a feeling. The bond between James and Diep grows deeper precisely because they face hardship together and choose to trust each other despite pain. This story reminds us that while betrayal can break trust, healing and reconciliation are possible when we choose compassion over bitterness. It's a moving testament to human resilience and the power of love to overcome even the darkest trials.